Alright, so the Z490 cards and motherboards have already been out for a while, and today MSI International has kindly lent us their MEG Z490 ACE motherboard for us to do a very in-depth review. So today we're going to take a look at this board with also another special by MSI, so they kindly lent us also a 10900K. So we're going to see all of the magic and all of the things that come with this motherboard. So make sure to watch the end of the video and stay tuned to the end of the video because we're going to give you a very special treat, a very special bonus for you to use. Before we carry on this video, we provide a lot of budget and PC professional build ideas to give you the best performance of a dollar. So if you like us, you like to stretch your dollar, make sure to smash the subscribe button as well as the bell button to see such amazing PC build ideas from us. So let's now carry on the video. Okay, so first things first, we're going to do the unboxing of this motherboard. So you can already see we already have the motherboard out, already mounted on this very nice MSI mounting rack provided by Mr. Gordon's friend.
Yes, Andy, thank you very much.
MSI will love it, motherboard on the motherboard rack. Anyway, we're going to do the unboxing, so I'm going to shift the Dragon here as well as the motherboard to one side first. You can see first thing, we have a very black box. Head issue right now because it's basically reflecting all the colors of the box. I don't know if you can see very well, but the design is very nice. Artwork's very nice. I love it actually. Okay, so let's do the unboxing. Okay, I already removed the anti-static back, so this is the cover. Okay, first thing we're going to see, this is the Wi-Fi antenna for the motherboard. It's so comfortable now. I have a place to put it nicely, man. Okay, so this is the first SATA cable. And this is Corsair link cable. So if you want to control your fans individually, you need to have this, but the Corsair fan hub is sold separately, so you have to get Corsair fan hub separately as well as the Corsair fans. But if you do that, you can control each fan individually via the MSI Music Lite software.
This is more for like, let's say you got a set of Corsair RGB fan, but instead of using Corsair IQ, you want to be able to control it via MSI Mystic Lite Sync along with the rest of your RGB accessory. So this allows you, in short, to control Corsair RGB fans using Mystic Lite.
Yep. So next we have, this is the 5V adjustable RGB cable. So this is the 12V RGB cable. Second SATA cable. Badge of honor, not red this time. Very nice, right?
Yeah, it's black.
Black with black everything. So this one goes very nicely on the
yeah, it goes very well with it. Yeah, black on black.
Okay.
Very nice.
So this is the manual. Yeah, very good. Definitely read through a manual. Quick start guide. Stickers. Yeah, so these stickers, don't underestimate this because as Gordon has mentioned, you can basically label each cable. So especially if you have a lot of hard drives, you can label each hard drive cable to know which one actually you're using.
Yeah, like let's say for example, you've got like 4 or 5 hard drives and you don't want to get them all mixed up. These labels come in very handy for them.
Thank you from MSI. Thank you for spending money with them. Thank you for spending more money, MSI.
The reward program.
Yes. Yeah, and your favorite. We don't mention this anymore.
It makes a great frisbee though. I wonder does it spin?
Yeah.
If you spot it, bullets fly.
Sorry, I'm not Linus. I'm not going to do anything stupid here. But and more thank you for MSI. Please buy more MSI things.
Yeah, the little catalog of buy more MSI.
Right, MSI is such an awesome brand. Anyway, yeah, so we have done with the unboxing. So I'm going to go through a bit of the motherboard. Gordon will go through more in depth later. But first thing you can see is a very black board. Very strong and sturdy. Okay, I'll put this badge somewhere else. Yeah, you have all of the M.2 shields. This is the price that you pay while getting a very high-end board. You have shields for 3 M.2 slots. Then the PCI arrangement is you either have 1604 or 884. So 884 comes when you're having 2 graphic cards and using NVLink. So you have X8, X8, X4. Then you have the 2.5G as well as 1G LAN ports at the back. Very black board, similar to the MSI Unify, but also with all of the RGB goodness that comes with this motherboard. Right now, I'm going to pass on to Gordon, take you through what else he finds so amazing about this motherboard. So Gordon, please take over now.
Okay, right, thanks Mel. So the first one I'm going to highlight would be the power connectors themselves. You can see that there are 2x8 pin power connectors here. Now this is important especially for Intel 10 Gen, especially the 10900K, because the 10900K, as you've seen in our earlier video, is well and truly capable of drawing in excess of 250 watts from the socket. So with each 8-pin connector theoretically rated for a maximum of 270 to 280 watts, it's good that this board comes with 2x8 pins, so at least that 250 watts or above that electrical load is spread across 2 sets of 8-pin cables instead of just congregating on just one. So moving right downwards, we have the 3-pin Corsair connector down here, like Mel mentioned earlier. This is to allow MSI Mystic Lite to control the lighting on Corsair RGB fans. Right behind down here, we have both the CPU fan connector as well as the pump connector, so they're hidden right over here. Nice position to have, because for AIOs, they normally will have a cable coming out from here, and then you can just nicely plug it here and here, well out of sight and hidden by this VRM heatsink over here. So good placement on that. The additional headers, these little points down here are interesting because according to the manual, these allow you to be able to stick like a multimeter to be able to measure the different kind of voltages. So we'll get to that later when we power this motherboard on. Your diagnostic lights are here, good to have. Next, we move on to the other portions. We have the USB Type-C connector here, and we have a single USB 3.0 connector right over here. Now, the one thing that I find a little bit disappointing about this board is the fact that this motherboard only has one of these. If you have, let's say, one of those cases that has 4 times USB 3, you'll have to get a separate USB 3 controller card to be able to use all 4 of those USB 3. Since there's only a single connector here, which means that only 2 of those USB 3 Type A ports front will work. Coming back to the board itself, it has 3 M.2 slots. First one is over here. 1, 2, 3. Number 1, if you were to put, let's say, a M.2 SATA SSD inside here, SATA port number 2 down here gets switched off. And if you were to put any SSD here, whether it's PCIe or SATA SSD port down here, SATA port number 5 and 6 get switched off. So if you were to populate this with, let's say, the maximum of 3 NVMe M.2 SSD, so 1, 2, 3, you will then have a grand total of 4 ports available. 1, 2, 3, 4. So yes, in case you're wondering, yes, I have taken the liberty of taking out the heat shields. They are right over here, hanging around here on the side. So moving downwards, of note on this side of the board will be the 2-digit postcode. So this comes in very handy because sometimes your board may not boot up. You want to see what code this generates to pinpoint exactly what is causing a problem. You have the button for the power and reset. This is good, especially in a test bench environment. At least you don't have to hold a screwdriver and short the power header to turn the board on. Then coming around to here, 2 times USB 2 and Thunderbolt header is here. So yes, you could go and get the Thunderbolt add-on PCIe expansion card and you will get Thunderbolt. And additional fan headers, and yeah, the RGB headers are over here as well. So you have the normal 12 volts RGB road over here, and you have the 5 volts adjustable RGB header right over here, and the audio port is right over there. Like Mel mentioned earlier on in the video, you have the PCIe slots down here, so it can either be in the arrangement of x16, x0, x4, or you could have 2 GPUs plugged in here. They will operate at x8, x8, then this slot down here operates at a maximum of x4. So the main difference between these 2 slots is these 2 slots are connected straight to the CPU. This is connected to the PCH over here, so do take note of that. Then of course we have 2 times PCIe 1X slots. That takes you about the overview of this board. Okay, next we come to the rear I/O itself, which is the one thing I find really impressive about this board. First off, we have the clear CMOS button over here. So like let's say you did a BIOS setting and then you screwed up and you need to clear the CMOS to reset your settings. So instead of having to take a screwdriver to short the battery over here, at least you can just come over here, just press and hold, let go, and yeah, your BIOS is reset. So that's a good thing. We have the flash BIOS button, so you can just take like, let's start a USB drive with your latest BIOS, plug it into this port over here and press this, and it will flash the BIOS without having the CPU or RAM or anything else plugged in. So it's very similar to the BIOS flashback function that we saw in our MSI B550 Mortar Wi-Fi review. So USB 2, you still have a PS2 port down here. This does come in useful for certain situations. In case you're wondering why we have a couple of different ports down here. So this is USB 3.2 Gen 1. So the blue ones are 5 gigabit. The red ones are USB 3.2 Gen 2. So these are 10 gigabit. So 10 gigabit, 10 gigabit, 10 gigabit. The USB Type-C here is 20 gigabit. Then we have Wi-Fi 6, then we have our ALC 1220 audio codec with the optical out down here, SPDIF right over here, as well as all the other channels. This board also comes with dual LAN. One on the left is the 1 gigabit one by Intel, and the one on the right here is a Realtek 2.5 gigabit LAN port. So that takes you through as to this overview as well as the I/O of this particular motherboard itself. Okay, right, now we come to the part that we've all been waiting for, the moment where we actually power up the set. So we've already powered it up. That's my two 140mm ARGB fans, my G-Skill Trident Z Neo RAM, as well as my AIO liquid cooler, and the obligatory MSI 2080 Ti Gaming X3 GPU right over here in all of its multicolored glory. Without further ado, let's get into the BIOS. Now, this is pretty typical, pretty standard MSI BIOS, but there are a couple of things that I would like to point out. Some of which is good and some of which I feel could use some improvement. On to the good stuff. So when we come to the OC part down here, when we look under, let's say, advanced CPU configuration, the one thing that struck my attention was that not only can you enable or disable hyperthreading, I mean, this is pretty standard. There are some applications where it's better to just disable the hyperthreading for a hyperthreading enabled CPU such as this i9 over here. But you can also control the per core hyperthreading control, which when you do this, since this is an i9, you can go to each and every of the i9's 10 cores from core number 0 all the way up to 9. You can enable or you can disable it. There may be a couple of reasons why you will want to do this. First and foremost, you're pushing for extreme overclocking and you want to get the maximum performance. Maybe some of the cores don't work so well with hyperthreading enabled in your extreme overclocking event. So this feature gives you that ability to try to tweak and see which core you want to enable hyperthreading, which one you don't. Now, a couple of other things that also caught my attention. Now, this little feature down here called Enhanced Turbo. The default setting is auto. Now, when we leave it on auto, what happens is that this thing will boost all the way up to 4.9 GHz. Same as the i9 that we did use for the Asus TUF Z490 review. But what happens is that when you switch it to enable, the all-core clock speed goes up from 4.9 to 5.1 GHz. So if you want to squeeze a bit more juice out of your i9, but you don't want to go through the hassle of dealing with the multipliers and all that, overclocking for beginners in other words, just enable the turbo, you'll get instant 5.1 across all 10 cores for an i9. So of course we have the power limits that you can set right over here. Yeah, so the typical things that spectrum, they're all right over here. Then of course this is enable the XMP. Those. Now we come to the one thing where I was kind of wondering what is going on here. Now usually most other Intel motherboards, when you come to, let's say here under integrated peripherals, there is an option here to enable the onboard iGPU, for which in this case, this particular i9, since this is a 10900K, it does have the onboard GPU. But what I noticed is that the option is not here. You cannot enable it for the plain and simple reason that the motherboard I/O behind, which I showed earlier, doesn't have any DisplayPort output. It doesn't have any HDMI port output. It has no output whatsoever. So while this may not be so much of a concern for gamers, but this is of great concern to any professional who uses applications that require or work best with Intel QuickSync enabled. One good example being Adobe Premiere Pro. So for Adobe Premiere Pro, for example, you could speed up your process by taking full advantage of the QuickSync feature on the Intel CPU itself. But the problem with this motherboard is that because I cannot enable the onboard GPU, this means that any professional that requires QuickSync is unable to take advantage of the one feature on the Intel CPU that it has a big advantage over, let's say, the AMD Ryzen lineup. So do take note of this, and some feedback for MSI, it would be good if you could put an option in the next iteration of the BIOS to enable it, even though yes, it's just there to be enabled for these professionals to be able to use the QuickSync feature and not for any form of display output. Okay, right, now we've gotten the set into Windows itself, so I'll just take you through some of the little things that I find really nice about this board itself. Well, there's Dragon Center. I won't go too much into detail here. Like I said, we've covered this in previous videos. Yes, there's all the options here to be able to adjust all the RGB down here, so I'll just probably just show you, set it to... So yeah, you can see everything turns white. Yeah, from the RGB strip here to my RGB fans to my RGB CPU to my RGB RAM. Basically, I have lights everywhere. Right, so coming down to other things, the one thing that I like to point out to you, especially when I'm through the BIOS just now, there was that enhanced turbo function. So in this part, I have taken the liberty of turning the feature on. Now watch what happens when I run the Cinebench. As you can see, as it's running that, running all the cores at 5.1. Of course, the other thing to note when you're running it at 5.1 is, yes, my 240mm AIO is screaming for help. So note to you guys down there, if you, oh my god, I reached 100 degrees already. So yeah, one thing to note, if you're planning to enable the enhanced turbo function, please, for the love of God, get a 360mm radiator, or you do a custom loop. The other thing that you will notice is my Cinebench score is a bit throttled. Just now it was 6200, now it's gone up a bit to 6370. It could be higher, it's just that my CPU was throttled just now due to the GPU. Now to illustrate the point again, the one thing I would like to also show as he's running that. Oh yes, look at my CPU package power. I just hit almost 300 watts. And the thing is, I'm being thermally throttled by the 240mm radiator. So if it isn't for it, if I had a 360, the package power could be even higher. So which is why it's a very good idea when you have enhanced turbo turned on, please make sure you get a decent power supply with 2x8 pin connected in. Yeah, imagine if you're trying to pump 300 watts through that one single 8 pin, you'll be in for a lot of trouble. This is why for motherboard like this, as well as for CPU like this, for this particular combo, you should plug both 8 pins in. This brings me to that one little feature that I mentioned when I was detailing the layout of the motherboard itself. To show you what happens, I'm gonna bring up my trusty little multimeter. If I were to do this, for example, put the black pin to ground, and I put the voltage onto the CPU header down here, and I run a Cinebench test. Okay, so you can see it's a 1.38 volts now. And if I want to measure my DRAM, hook it over to here. So yes, now I can see my RAM here is 1.36 volts. VCC SA is at 1.27 volts, as well as the VCC IO. So now, since the Cinebench run has stopped, so you can see it's dropped back down to 0.91 volts like that, so it's fluctuating about that thing. So this little thing is good, for example, if you're doing your overclocking and you want to not have to rely on a display to be able to see what your current CPU voltage is, like that kind of thing. You just probe the voltage just like that. One thing that I think you can do with something like that is that you could have like an LED display. Maybe you put it on your case, and then maybe you wire that LED display, maybe a voltmeter, and then you wire the voltmeter directly to these points down here. So that will look pretty rad. So you don't have to rely on any display on your screen or monitor or anything like that. You can just put this voltmeter straight on your case itself. How cool is that? Now it comes to the part that you want to hear. What do I think of this motherboard itself? Well, on the whole, I think it's a pretty good board, even though at the price tag that it goes for in Singapore, it goes for 699 SGD. So it's a little bit more expensive here than it probably is in the United States, where I hear it goes for 350 to 400 USD. Now, even at that price range, however, if you are a gamer or you are an overclocking enthusiast, I will say this board has a lot to offer you. It gives you a degree of fine control, like being able to adjust the voltage, they'll be able to enable and disable hyperthreading on an individual core basis. This gives your hardcore enthusiasts a degree of fine control, not really often found on a lot of lower end motherboards, and even some motherboards that are in this guy's price range. If you are like, let's say, a gamer, you're looking to have the most kick-ass gaming rig there is, without really thinking too much about how to get your i9 over that magical 5 GHz limit, the enhanced turbo function that I found inside the BIOS will give you that. Just flip that switch and you get instant 5.1 GHz across all 10 cores without messing with the multiplier or anything else. If you are that kind of user, i9 10900K, 2080 Ti, buy this board, go knock yourself out. If, however, you are a professional, especially those who are using applications that leverage and take advantage of Intel QuickSync, I did point out in the BIOS feature down there that the absence of the ability to switch on the iGPU inside the i9 can be a minus if you are looking around for a motherboard itself, because the inability to switch on the iGPU here means that wherever you take a 10900K or you take a 10900KF is not going to make any difference, because the main thing between the K and the KF is the iGPU. So for people who are using Premiere, do take note, you cannot enable the iGPU here to leverage on QuickSync. But all in all, it is a good board. You just have to ask yourself the question, what kind of a user are you? So if you're a gamer, good, get this board. If you're a professional, until MSI does something with the BIOS, I would suggest you look at some other models that do allow you to enable the onboard GPU to leverage on QuickSync.
Alright, I hope you guys like our detailed overview of this MEG Z490 ACE by MSI. So yeah, if you have stayed to the end of the video, so here is the bonus that I'm going to tell you. So it's included inside the link, you can check the description box. So basically, we have Steam credits. So MSI is giving out this very cool combo. For example, for this Z490 ACE plus the 10 RK, if you use our Steam link, you will have $80 worth of Steam credits. So use that link and you can get $80 off your 10 RK plus your ACE combo. So make sure you click the link if you want that bundle. Or if not, you can check out the link and the picture I provided for more details for other bundles that they have. So for example, things like if you want to buy a CPU plus the MSI motherboard, that's one of the bundles. Second bundle will be the motherboard plus CPU plus the MSI cooler and so forth. So you can check out the link I provided in the description box below. So yeah, if you like this video, make sure to give us a thumbs up. Especially if you have not seen our B550M motherboard walkthrough, especially for the MSI Dragon Center, make sure to check out that video. And make sure to check back our channel because we are going to do another top tier motherboard pretty soon. Right, Gordon?
Yes, I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, thank you for Gordon and I. It's very late right now. Sorry for the delay. We say goodbye.